The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Turn your memorabilia into a work of art.
This is The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and by Renewal by Andersen, with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates. We appreciate you joining us. Tennessee 42, Indiana State. We'll be talking about the big loss. Actually, that's what it seemed like. If you went online yesterday or if you listened to Jimmy Himes' call-in show this morning, a lot of people really ticked off about that 42-7 win. We'll discuss the goods and the bads of that game in full today. We got 4 media members. We got 4 VFLs as usual. Let's get started. First segment of the show brought to you by Bill Hotz and Associates. For more than 30 years, they have been the group to call if you find yourself the victim of a careless driver. Tens of millions of dollars they have won for their clients over those years. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of winning. They know what they're doing. So if you find yourself in that kind of a situation in need of an attorney, it's no laughing matter. Bill Hotz and Associates, those are the folks to call. All right, want to welcome in the first round of panelists today. Bob Hodge, Will Overstreet, Jimmy Himes, Ryan Callahan back with us. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We do headlines in the first of our show. Here's the first headline, if we can get that up. The good with the bad, Smiling Butch and Angry Butch. What you saw yesterday, Tennessee's defense, this is the good. You only gave up 7 points, and that was on a short field after a turnover. They stopped Indiana State on all 11 third down chances. So Sterling's new third down song worked. And they did okay in terms of total offense. I mean, you're talking about a team that got 200 yards on them, 200 and something yards. But there were times when Indiana State was able to get to the edge, outrun them, showed a little bit more speed. Coming off a Georgia Tech game where they ran you up the middle, now you gave up some yardage on the outside. Some pluses, some minuses. How do you feel about the defense coming out of yesterday? Was it more positive or more worrisome coming out of there?
I'm going to go with you don't know. How's that for Cavaliers?
We'll see you next Sunday, folks. That's the in-depth analysis we need.
Because it's a bad football team. So you don't know if you got any better. And that's what I thought going into that game. To me, this game was going to be like an eat block test. Okay, to you it means this, to Will it means something else. And I think that's what you come out of it. If you're going to go with one or the other, okay, I think you got better. You look better. But you look better against a much inferior opponent, so I think it's hard to grade that.
There's really nothing but negatives you can take from a game like this, and they avoided most negatives. I thought.
Yes, I thought they did too.
Guys,
I still didn't see what I thought would be in obvious passing situations. Did you see anybody really get past the offensive line and cause pressure on the quarterback?
Nope.
I didn't see that. That presents a problem to me because in games against SEC talent with those kinds of quarterbacks, especially if you watch a game like Auburn versus Clemson last night and you saw what Auburn's defensive line did with 4 guys rushing and the amount of pressure, then you compare that to the UT game against a subpar offensive line, and you didn't see anybody get that clean, get that much pressure on the quarterback without having to put people and rush people at times.
well, and Bob Shoop, of course, known for blitzing. I don't know how you're going to be able to blitz this year with your corners. You may or may not be able to, but here's the thing. Against Indiana State, you shouldn't have to be blitzing. You should have defensive linemen that can get to the quarterback. Jimmy, your thoughts, offense or defense? Defense, positive or negative?
I actually came out feeling a little bit better about the defense, not about that much. But I'm looking at UT Martin had a running back, got 188 yards against Ole Miss, and Eastern Kentucky was leading Kentucky in the second half. So I didn't think Tennessee was as inspired or as engaged as maybe it might have been. It was a Monday night game against Georgia Tech. It's double overtime. But I did think if you go 0 for 11 on third down, if you hold them to 215 yards, that's pretty good. They didn't set the edge very well. They did stop runs up the middle for the most part. So I thought there were more positives than there had been defensively, but not by a whole lot.
Ryan, what did you think?
I agree. I think more positives. I think you come away feeling better. It's not 535 rushing yards that they allowed against Georgia Tech. Like Will said, though, I think the concern going forward is they've got to get more of a pass rush. We haven't seen chances, not many chances, for them to really improve on that, but I think they've got to do better in that area. And I think we've got to see if this group can get to the edge quickly. I thought the lateral quickness didn't look as good yesterday, whereas against Georgia Tech, I thought they covered sideline to sideline pretty well.
You know, going back to what Jimmy said, I thought Tennessee was in a bit of a tough spot because you're coming off an emotional Georgia Tech win where you really didn't play very well. Then you've got Florida in a week. And this to me was a game where if I'm a Tennessee player, it's going to be hard to get up for that.
You also could have had no more than 1 or 2 practices this week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're a starter, you're probably going to be in there a pretty short amount of time. So how fired up are you about playing, a half? And so I thought Tennessee, an emotional spot for this game, it wasn't a good place.
To be honest, I thought the biggest concern was they didn't play enough depth in this game. I thought you saw Tennessee had some chances to get some younger guys in there, and they let their starters stay in until the 3rd or 4th quarter. To me, that's the biggest downfall of this game.
We'll hang on. We'll talk about it in a later segment when you're gone. We'll discuss your. He's about to bite his pen to get into that one. We'll get to that. Let's go to our second headline from yesterday. Instead of the Revolutionary War, it's an evolutionary chore. All right, this team has got a little Tennessee football helmet. We've said before the season that this team had a lot of holes to fill. All right, we've said it all off season. Key positions, you don't know what you're going to get there. Then you come in and you take away the #1 defender and the #1 playmaker by week 1. All right, I don't get the surprise that this team isn't a finished product yet. I mean, I know you can always say that about every team. Well, you're not a finished product of game 12. This more so than what last year's team should have been. Last year's team I would have expected to get out of the gate quicker than this year's team. But as Jimmy said, for the people who are upset about how you've looked so far, you're 2-0. Look around the league. Texas A&M struggled with Nichols. Kentucky struggled with Eastern Kentucky. Ole Miss struggled with whoever they played. You could be Arkansas, who got bombed yesterday, 28-7. Auburn fans, their defense looked good. They're not real thrilled about their offensive genius who can't get a touchdown. Everybody's got some issues except Alabama. I don't understand the surprise from the folks who are like, how are we not 12-0? Well, didn't we warn all off season that the over-under for this team 7.5 wins? I think I'd still look at this as a 7-win football team. Your thoughts on how to view a team that I don't think is going to be a finished product for a while.
Go back to your picture on your headline. I would have put the Tennessee helmet about 3 guys back.
It's not there yet. That's a good point. Good point.
Where they're at. And I think
one of the Neanderthals.
Yeah, and that's the reason. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but that's the reason next week is so huge. Is how much progress can you make in less than 2 weeks from Georgia Tech to Florida?
I wouldn't get too upset or concerned because look, the litmus test is Florida, right?
Yeah.
But I remember even when you go back to 1989 when Sterling Hint was the quarterback, Tennessee opened the season with a very lackluster win against Colorado State, 17-14. Oh no, they can't beat UCLA. Well, they went out to UCLA, they faced a litmus test, and they beat them 24-6. So I just think the sense of urgency about why this team isn't a whole lot better right now. Let's wait another week.
Yeah, there are holes. There are obvious worries and concerns. You point those out, and these could bite you if they're not fixed. But this shock that they're not the #1 team in the country, I don't get it.
Well, I think the shock comes in that people have been building up. They said things like the offensive line is going to be a strength because they had people coming back. I mean, there was no proof or facts to lay out. Why is Dormady going to be so much greater quarterback than Josh Dobbs? Why is this guy going to be so much better? It's just hype of looking at spring practice and going, wow, they did great. They had a great moment right there. That must mean they're all Americans coming out in this year when they play other guys that have great spring games too. So, I mean, that's the part is it's been built up in their head and it hasn't been seen on the field to prove anything yet.
We have to catch a break. Last week, I heard somebody yesterday on one of the call-in shows, or maybe it was your show this morning, somebody called in and said, well, what about the strength coach? I thought it was supposed to be a difference. What did we say last Sunday? I specifically asked you, when you look at just one off season, can you turn a switch that's night and day different? And we said no. More people need to watch this show. All right. By the way, this note, Tennessee 22-8 now in their last 30 games, 73% winning percentage. That is the best run since the end of 05, start of 06, and 07. So for all the talk of doom and gloom, it hadn't been this good in a decade, so Tampa breaks. All right, when we come back, did Bob Shoop throw Brady Hoke under the bus, and who's got the advantage going into Florida, Tennessee? Come on back.